Let's move on to the next topic, the ancient science of Vedic psychology. Astonishingly, the science of the mind was perfectly explained 5000 years ago. Let me repeat, 5000 years ago in the ancient Vedic scriptures. This is science which we can call Vedic psychology. Till now, whatever you have seen the psychology of different types, it is one side of the coin. The second side is called Vedic psychology, describes the mind's working so clearly that in contrast, the empirical theories of modern psychology pale into insignificance. Vedic psychology is elaborated in great detail in the Upanishads and especially Bhagavad Gita, along with the other Vedic scriptures. These ancient texts have been greatly acclaimed by several famous Western scholars. There are few quotations said by the different scholars. American writer and philosopher Henry David Thoreau said like this: whenever I have read any part of the Vedas, I have felt that a divine light illuminated me. In the great teaching of the Vedas, there is no touch of sectarianism. French philosopher Victor Cousin says like this: when we read the philosophical monuments of the East, above all those of India, we discover in them many truths so highly elevated in contrast to which the European genius has stopped that we are constrained to bend our knees before the philosophy of India. Albert Einstein, you may already know about him, American scientist, says like this: when I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created this entire universe, everything else seems so superfluous. German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer says like this: there is nothing in this world as elevating as the Upanishads. They have been the solace of my life and they shall be the solace of my death. German Orientalist Professor Max Muller says like this: if these words of Schopenhauer require any confirmation, I shall gladly give it as the result of my lifelong study of the Vedic scriptures. German Orientalist Paul Guessen says like this: eternal philosophical truth has seldom found a more striking and decisive expression than in the emancipating knowledge of the philosophy of the Upanishads. J. Robert Oppenheimer, an American nuclear physicist, says like this: access to the Vedas is the greatest privilege this century may claim over previous centuries. English writer Aldous Huxley says like this: the Bhagavad Gita is one of the clearest and the most comprehensive summaries of the perennial philosophy ever to have been done. So this is the eminence shares speech or feedback on our Vedic psychology. Vedic psychology represents the origin and creation of mental afflictions in a systematic, scientific, and logical manner. It further teaches us the techniques for purification of the mind and the solution to problems of everyday life through improvement in our thinking. Let us embark on a thrilling journey on the pathways of Vedic psychology. I assure you that it could be the most rewarding journey of your life. But the subtle science requires an open mind, concentration, and dedication to understand it. Therefore, patiently read the logic enumerated here down to the last link, and you will find that all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle of the mind's functioning fall neatly into place. You may have heard about jigsaw puzzle. It will be attaching one piece to another piece, right? So we are going to discuss about the diseases of the mind as per the Vedic scriptures and Vedic psychology. We are familiar with the bodily afflictions and their consequences as of now. A single physical ailment has the capacity to ruin your entire day. It is not uncommon to hear people say that their back was aching, back pain is heavy, or head was dizzy, head was paining, and so they could do nothing throughout the day. However, physical ailments are not even fractionally as debilitating as mental ones. Sage Tulsi Das, Sage Tulsidas says like this in the Ramayana. एक व्याधि वश नरमरहीन ये असाधि बहुव्याधि पीरहीन संतत जीव कहून सो किमी lahai samadhi. The meaning of this verse is everyone, even one physical ailment is enough to incapacitate us. Eka vyadhi vasha naramarahin. Even one physical ailment is enough to incapacitate us. Ye asadi bahuvyadi pirahin. Then think of the plight of the soul afflicted by numerous mental ailments. Santata jiva kahun, so kimi lahai samadhi. Is there a means for relief? The Vedic scriptures refer to anger, envy, greed, desire, among other weaknesses as manasa roga, mental illnesses. They afflict all of us as long as we are in the world of Maya. The problem is that we often do not even realize that we have a mental affliction. We know we get angry, and we are aware that we become envious as well by seeing others' growth. But we do not know that anger and envy are diseased conditions. Instead, we write them off as a human nature or a natural tendency. And since we are unaware of their effect on our overall health and well being, we do not try to cure them. We have tablets for fever, we have tablets for headache, but we don't have a tablet for anger. The tablets are included in Vedic scriptures. These mental diseases are so overpowering that even government laws are unable to keep them in check. People know that violence can result in imprisonment, and yet, when angry, they do not hesitate to transgress the law. They know that the consumption of narcotics is illegal, but still, driven by desire, they remain addicted. Why? Why is it that we have behaved in ways that do us more harm than good? To answer this question, let us study the diseases of the mind. So, there will be a lot of diseases in the body. Now, we are going to study the diseases of the mind one at a time. Let us see each and every mind disease in detail. The disease of anger is the first one. One of the grossest mental afflictions is anger. When it arises, it disturbs our inner poise. It causes a rush of blood to the head. We often regret what we say or what we do when we are in a rage or in anger. Later, we wish that we had not become angry, and we wonder how we succumbed to it. The backlash of anger can remain inside us for much longer than provocation that caused it. Let us listen a small story. Rosh was changing the punctured tire of his car. You know car, right? So he was changing the punctured tire, and that was parked outside his home. Unknown to him, his son had taken a sharp edged stone and was etching graffiti on the other side of the car. After replacing the wheel, Rosh walked around and discovered the damage that his 5-year-old son had done. Rosh became livid with rage. He became anger. He took the spanner in his hand and began beating his son mercilessly on his knuckles. Though the son screamed, Rosh continued slamming his hand in his fit of fury. Later, Rosh discovered that he had broken the fingers of his little 5-year boy. He rushed him to the hospital. The doctor examined the hand and said that a couple of fingers would have to be removed to avoid gangrene from growing on the dead mouse. Rosh was shattered at what he had done. After the surgery, when the little boy regained consciousness, he looked at his hand and asked innocently, Father, when will my fingers grow back? Rosh broke down into tears. He returned home filled with remorse. In the driveway, his eyes fell on the graffiti on the car. His son had written, I love you, Dad. The child had innocently expressed his love by scratching the car, but in his rage, Rosh had behaved like a fiend. Such is the nature of anger. It makes us forget civility, good manners, and kindness. In its grip, humans forget basic respect, empathy, and compassion. Hence, the Sanskrit saying is there Krodhat Krodhe Khatannuthe. Do not allow anger to overcome you. Rather, become angry upon anger itself. Remember that. Become angry upon anger itself. The question now before us in this, how we can overcome anger. Nobody wants to become a slave of fury and allow the intellect to be deluded by it. Yet when it attacks us, we forget and make the mistake of giving into it. Why does anger arise? We forget. Why does anger arise? And is there any permanent solution to overcome it? In order to answer this question, we first need to understand another mental disease, which is called the disease of greed. A second mental disease is greed. Greed for money, greed for prestige, greed for delicacies, greed for luxurious objects, or anything else. Though people spend their whole life striving to satiate greed, it remains forever unfulfilled like a bottomless vessel. Unlike anger that reaches a peak and then subsides, greed never diminishes. And motivated by it, we burn out as is seen in the rat race of the corporate world. Let us go for another story. Let me share a powerful story on this particular topic called greed. A king was hunting alone in a dense forest when he lost his way. Wandering desperately, he reached the hut of a villager called Lobhiram, who gave him food, drink, and shelter for the night. The next morning, the king thanked him from the bottom of his heart and offered him the boon of his choice. Lobhiram said, O king, yours is a large kingdom. Please grant me the boon that all the land I can measure with my horse from sunrise to sunset should be mine. The king, out of gratitude to the villager, consented, so be it. The next day, Lobhiram started off from outside the king's capital city. He had a good steed and he kept prodding it to gallop as fast as it could. By 10 o'clock in the morning, he had covered a huge terrain. The land would have sufficed for him and many generations of his progeny, but it was insufficient for his greed. By the midday, both the rider and the horse were exhausted, and their throats were parched like leather, but Lobhiram's greed was ever fresh and yearning for more. Finally, in the late afternoon, the steed collapsed. Lobhiram was thrown off and crashed headlong into a boulder by the side of the road. He died on the spot. When nearby villagers came to bury Lobhiram, they exclaimed, Alas, in the end, just these 2 yards of land alone were useful to him. All the rest was wasted. Such is the nature of the greed. It drives us unforgivingly for fulfillment of desires which never happens. Let us listen from the Garuda Purana. The Garuda Purana, second chapter, 12.14 says like this: Chakradharo api suratvam, suratvalabhe sakala surapatitvam, surapatiru urdva gatitvam, tathapi nanivartate trushna. Let us understand the meaning. A king, Chakradhari, wishes to be the emperor of the world. Api suratvam. The emperor aspires to be a celestial god. Suratvalabhe. A celestial god seeks to be Indra. Sakala surapatitvam. The king of heaven. And Indra desires to be Brahma. Surapatir urdva gatitvam. Surapati means Indra, urdva gatitvam. He desires to become Brahma, the secondary creator. Yet the thirst for material enjoyment, tathapi anivartate trushna. Enjoyment does not get satiated. Even though a king wishes to be the emperor, he became the king of heaven, he became Indra, he became Indra, he desired to be Brahma, the second creator, and the thirst for enjoyment does not get satiated. The difference between our needs and our wants is created by greed. We do not need much to live a happy life. Remember this, we do not need much to live a happy life, but greed creates innumerable wants for more wealth, higher posts, greater prestige, and bigger houses. The more we get, the more we want. The more we get, the more we want. Nothing seems to quell our discontentment. Imagine just how blissful life would be with the wealth of our inner contentment that would come if we could free ourselves from greed. What is the origin of greed and what is its cure? The answer to this question will become abundantly clear in just a little while. Read on patiently. The third affliction of mind, which is nothing but the affliction of desire. We have seen anger, greed. Now we came to desire. Both anger and greed are severe afflictions of the mind. Yet the Vedas say that these are both marginal, more perilous than even these is another disease. What is that? Desire. To want, to long, or to hope for something is kamana, which is called desire, kamana. It is fundamentally of 5 kinds. The desire is of 5 kinds. The desire to see, the desire to hear, the desire to smell, the desire to taste, the desire to touch. Together these are called kama, lust, and referred by one word which is called desire. How dangerous is desire? The Sukti Sudhakar states like this: Kuranga matanga patanga brunga minahataha pancha bhireva pancha ekah pramadi sa katham na hanyate yah sevate panchabhireva pancha. So this is said by Sukti Sudhakar. This popular verse translates as follows: The deer loves music for the pleasure of the ear. It is enticed by the hunter who plays melodious music and shoots the deer when it comes to hear it. The elephant loves the tactile enjoyment it gets from its skin. It is allured into the net by the female elephant and becomes easy prey for the waiting poacher. The moth lusts for the light to gratify its eyes. It is drawn to the flame and gets burned alive. The honeybee loves fragrance for it gives pleasure to its nostrils. It refuses to fly off when the flower closes at sunset and get trapped within. The fish, yearning for indulgence of its tongue, nibbles at the bait and ends up in the fisherman's frying pan. All these die in pursuit of the pleasure of one of the senses. What will happen to the human who is chasing all five objects of gratification? Desire is universally singled out in all the Vedic scriptures as the worst mental affliction. We may wonder why it is considered such a big culprit. In anger, people destroy life and property. In greed, they waste their whole life accumulating meaningless goods and posts they could easily live without. But in desire, they only hanker for gratification and indulgence. So, isn't desire relatively innocuous in comparison to anger and greed? No, it is not, for desire is the mother of anger and greed. Let us understand this in the following sections. So, remember that desire is the mother of anger and greed. Anger arises from desire. Let us understand the origin of anger through the another following story. So, it is a story time. Chandu developed a deep desire to eat ice cream. He purchased 2 liters of chocolate chip from the local ice cream store and placed it in the freezer. Chandu then went for a walk in the sun to work up an appetite so that he could really enjoy the ice cream on his return journey. However, on coming back, he found that there was no ice cream in the refrigerator. I had put a large pack of ice cream here. Chandu exclaimed, "Where did it go?" "My dear husband, do you not remember?" His wife commented nonchalantly. "The doctor had prescribed that you should limit your sugar intake. I have thrashed the entire ice cream." "What? You threw the ice cream?" Chandu yelled. He became incensed with rage upon his wife. What was the cause of the for Chandu's outburst? He had created a desire and its fulfillment was obstructed by his wife. This led to the anger outburst. Therefore, anger comes not on its own but from the obstruction of the desire. Consider another examples. We grow angry when we want our family to concur with our views and they do not. We become angry when others refuse to follow our suggestions or instructions. Thus, desire is the mother and anger is its child. Sometimes people come to me saying, "Swamiji, everything is okay in me except for anger." "You do not have any affliction apart from anger?" I ask. "No, Swamiji, anger is only my problem." Impossible. If anger is present, its cause, desire, must also be present. We have learned that the cause for anger is the obstruction of desire. Now let us determine the second side of the coin, the cause for greed. Greed also arises from desire. Let us go back to the example of Chandu and his wife. Same story. We had seen how when Chandu discovered his wife had thrashed the ice cream he had become livid with rage, anger. Now, suppose the wife did not throw the ice cream. When Chandu returned, he began eating voraciously. Now ask him, "Did you enjoy the ice cream?" He says, "Yes." "So is your desire satiated forever?" "No, it is only satiated for today," he replies. "After 3 days, I will want it again." This example illustrates how fulfilling desire only extinguishes it for a brief moment. It then comes back with greater intensity. In this way, the fulfillment of desire is the cause of greed. The uncommonly known secret of this world is that desire can never be eliminated by satiating it, by fulfilling it. It is like attempting to extinguish a fire by pouring a clarified butter on it. The fire does seem to go away, but only momentarily. It then flares up with redoubled vigor. Thus, like anger, greed is also the child of the desire. The Ramayana states like this: Jimi pratilabha lobha adhikai. If you satisfy desire, it results in greed. Jimi pratilabha lobha adhikai. If you satisfy desire, it results in greed. And there is a Srimad Bhagavatam which states like this: Yat prutivyam vrūhiyavam hiranyam pashavah striyah na duhyanti manah pritam pumsah kamahatasyate. Said in Bhagavatam 9th canto 19th chapter 13th shloka. If one person was to get all the wealth, all the luxuries, and all the sensual objects in the entire world, that person's desire would still not be satiated. Hence, knowing it to be the cause of misery, an intelligent person should renounce desire. So, pumsam kama hatasyate. He is nothing but to renounce desire. The Puranas relate a powerful story about how desires gets inflamed. Another story time. Saubhari was a great sage in ancient times. He is mentioned in the Rig Veda, where there is a mantra called Saubhari Sutra. There is also a scripture called the Saubhari Samhita. In other words, he was not just another hermit. Saubhari had attained such control over his body that he could submerge himself in the Yamuna and meditate underwater. One day he saw two fish mating. This spectacle, carried away by his mind and senses and the desire for sexual consummation, aroused in him. He abandoned his spiritual practice and came out of the water, wondering how to fulfill his desire. At that time, the king of Ayodhya was Mandhata, a very illustrious and noble ruler. He had 50 daughters, each more beautiful than the other. Saubhari approached the king and asked for the hand in marriage of one of the 50 princesses. King Mandhata wondered about the sanity of the sage and thought to himself, an old man wanting to get married. The king knew Saubhari to be a powerful sage and feared that if he refused, the sage might curse him. But if he consented, the life of one of his daughters would be ruined. He was in a dilemma. As a way out of the predicament, he said, "O Holy One, I have no objection to your request. Please take a seat. I shall bring my 50 daughters before you, and whosoever chooses you will become yours in your marriage." The king was confident that none of his daughters would choose the old ascetic, and in this way he would be saved from the sage's curse. Saubhari was all too aware of the king's intention. He told the king that he would return the following day. That evening he used his yogic powers to turn himself into a handsome young man. Consequently, when he presented himself at the palace the next day, all the 50 princesses chose him as their husband. The king was bound by the word he had given and was compelled to marry all his daughters to the sage. Now the king was deeply concerned about how sage Saubhari could keep his 50 daughters happy. However, Saubhari again used his yogic powers. Putting the king's apprehension to rest, he assumed 50 forms, created 50 palaces for his wives, and lived separately with each of them. In this manner, thousands of years passed by. The Puranas state that Saubhari had many children from each of them, and those children had further children until a tiny city was created. One day, Saubhari came to his senses and exclaimed, Aho, Imam Pashyata me Vinashyam. Aho, Imam Pashyata me Vinasham. O humans, those of you who make plans to attain happiness through material acquisitions, be careful. Said in Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, 6th chapter, 50th sloka. Look at my degradation. I used to sit in Samadhi in the Yamuna river. One desire arose, and to satiate it and to fulfill it, I created 50 bodies by my yogic powers, living with 50 women for thousands of years, and yet the senses did not experience the fulfillment. They only kept hankering for more. Learn from my downfall and be not fooled into thinking you will ever fulfill desire. Saubhari realized he had been chasing a mirage. Worldly pleasures have also been called Mrugatrushna in the scriptures, which means like a mirage seen by the deer. The sun's rays reflecting on the hot desert sand create an illusion of water. The deer, fooled by the illusion, thinks there is water ahead of it and runs to quench its thirst. Its dull intellect cannot realize it is the victim of deception. The more it runs towards the water, the further the mirage recedes. The unfortunate deer keeps chasing the illusory water and finally dies of exhaustion. Likewise, material energy, Maya, too creates an illusion of happiness, and we run after that illusory happiness in the hope of quenching the thirst of our senses. But no matter how much we try, happiness recedes from us. We see how the wealthy we have enough food and clothes for survival, and yet they remain disturbed and unsatisfied. They see someone else with a better house, better clothes, and a more lucrative job, and so there is no contentment. These desires can also be compared to be an itch. When we have an itch, it creates an irresistible urge to scratch. But scratching does not solve the problem. There is relief for a while, and then the desire to scratch returns with greater force. Instead, if one tolerates the itch for some time, the urge to scratch dies down slowly. The same logic applies to the desires as well. The mind and senses throw up myriad wishes for happiness. As long as we are in the game of fulfilling them, they flare endlessly. However, when we learn to turn the mind away from material allurements and renounce the desires of the senses, we come in touch with the inner bliss of the soul. Let us see from the Kathopanishad, which says like this. The Kathopanishad goes to the extent of saying that one who has renounced sensual desires becomes like God. Yadha sarve pramuchyante kamayesya hrudishritaha atah martyo amruto bhavatyartra brahma samashnute. Said in Kathopanishad 2.3.14. The meaning of this is, when one eliminates all selfish desires from the heart, then the materially fettered Jivatma, the soul, attains freedom from birth and death and becomes godlike in virtue. The godlike nature of the soul that is devoid of yearning is also stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 7th canto 10th chapter and 9th slok. Vimuchyanti yadha kaman manavo manasistitan tarhyeva pundarikaksha bhagavattvaya kalpate. विमुच्यन्ति यथा कामान् मानवो मनसि स्थितान् तर्ह्येव पुण्डरीकाक्ष भगवत्वया kalpate. That person who eradicates wants and becomes situated in a state of contentment becomes like God. Let us listen from the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita also states Vihaya kaman yasarvan pumams charati nispruhaha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantim adigacchati. विहाय कामान् यः सर्वान् पुमांश्चरति निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स शान्तिम् अधिगच्छति. Said in Bhagavad Gita 2nd chapter 71th shloka. One who gives up all material desires and lives free from a sense of greed, proprietorship and egoism attains perfect peace. Sa shantim adhigacchati means attains perfect peace. Elimination of desire is also the focus of the Buddhist philosophy. There are 4 noble truths so strongly emphasized by the Buddha, which are nothing but the first one is there is misery in the world. Second thing is misery has a cause. And the third is the cause of misery is desire. And the fourth one is if desire is eradicated, misery will be eradicated. The downward spiral beginning from desire does not end merely with anger and greed. Let us see how far downhill it can take us in the next episode. Until then, collect down all the stories whatever we have discussed till now in this story episode and share your pointers in the comments below. Which story is connected, how the desire is the mother of anger and greed. So see you in another episode where we'll finish this chapter, the afflictions of the mind, and we'll see the summary of this chapter. Until then, stay connected, keep sharing your lessons in the comments below.